Welcome back to our sixth Positive Solutions for Families session. We're really excited that you guys are watching, and today we're going to talk about responding with a purpose. So we're going to look around ways to respond to challenging behavior. We talked last time about how to teach them new skills, and so our goal in this session is to have a better understanding of a few new ways to prevent challenging behavior and some intentional ways that we can respond when the behavior does occur. So the first thing that we're going to do, as usual, is we're going to have you guys do your affirmations. Write down something that you guys have tried that has went well, or just a celebration that you have as a parent in the last week or so. So we're going to start this out by talking about prevention, and we're going to review our ABCs of behavior. So if you guys remember back to, I think it was the second session, and we talked about the A stands for antecedent. So this is what happened directly before the behavior happened. The B stands for behavior. This refers to what the child did. You want to ask yourself, what did this challenging behavior look like? And then the C refers to the consequence of your child's challenging behavior. And this simply just means what happened after. We use the ABCs of behavior to help us determine the meaning, the function of the challenging behavior. The function of the behavior is what the child is trying to communicate. They might want to obtain something or get something like a toy, attention, food, or they might be trying to avoid or escape something, such as a demand, attention, or stimulation. When we understand the meaning of this, then we can better understand what strategy we need to use. When we're talking about additional strategies today, some strategies will help prevent these challenging behaviors. Others might be after the challenging behavior occurs. But here is an important message. Please do not try all of these strategies at once. Take your time, think about the strategies, and maybe just choose one and practice it for a while until you get comfortable using it. Think about all of the prevention strategies that we have discussed so far. First, we want to try to prevent these challenging behaviors by just planning ahead. So this is honestly the strongest prevention plan that you can have. Try to anticipate what your child might do or might need in various situations. Plan to set your child up for a successful experience. Not everyone likes surprises, and no one really likes disappointment. So if we know that those things are going to happen, how can we prepare them for what is to come? We can't surround them with a protective bubble, right, that guarantees that they're never disappointed and they're always happy. So we have to think about how to plan them for things that might not go as we expected. And especially when you're 3 and 4, because those changes can really throw you for a loop. We want to encourage you to give some serious thought to how your child reacts to surprises and disappointments, because we can also learn a lot based on patterns of behavior. Some children tend to recover quickly, while others are more likely to collapse into a complete meltdown. Talk with your child about upcoming events. So depending on your child's ability to understand, you can keep it simple. Like, this is where we're going, this is what we're doing. We're going to go walk to the park, you get to be on the swings. Or as wide-ranging as discussing some of the things that could happen about what is done, what can be done if it occurs. So we're going to walk to the park and go on the swings. If your favorite swing is taken, we can play in the sandbox until it's open. As you make a plan, think about what your child will need for things to go well and what you might also need if things fall apart. We always want to plan to hope for the best, but we also need to be prepared for the worst. For example, if you have to wait while you get a new tire put on your car, and you think it might be something quick, you might just need to have a few things up your sleeve for if it takes longer than expected. We also want to remember to know what is reasonable and to use this as a strategy. It's important to know your child's ability and limitations. Expecting too much or too little can lead to problems and frustrations for you and your child. Keep your expectations realistic. When you consider their abilities and limitations, it's very important to take a look at the whole picture. For example, let's say you want your child to pick up their toys before bedtime, right? First, we have to ask ourselves, do they even know what pick up your toys means? Have I showed them what that means to pick up their toys? Are they able to put everything back where they belong in a way that would satisfy me? And then even if you know your child understands and is able, there's still going to be a chance that maybe they don't. So think about, do you have to remind them to start the task over and over? Do you find yourself getting really frustrated? Reasonable expectations include not only what your child can do, but how likely they're also able to do it. So, what is a reasonable expectation for something like picking up your toys? This obviously isn't going to be a single answer for anybody because all of our kiddos and homes are so different. But think about their history, and sometimes we can think about starting smaller and growing taller. So for example, maybe the first time you do it, you help them, or you have them just pick up one type of toy. So they pick up all the Legos and you pick up all of the Hot Wheels cars. And then from there, you can kind of grow it so that they're able to do everything independently. But first, we really have to show them just what we mean by the directions that we're giving to them. Another strategy is just understanding things that we can do. So we're going to discuss a few ways to respond to these challenging behaviors in a way that can help decrease them. So how we respond in a challenging behavior, even if we think it should reduce or stop the challenging behavior, I think we all know doesn't always work. But we want to also think about what is going to make this more likely or less likely to happen. So think about this situation. Your child is screaming and yelling and you tell them, please use an inside voice. But they're trying to get attention and you kind of just gave them some attention. So the consequence for reminding them might also be that they're going to yell again the next time they want your attention. So we need to think about the consequences of how we respond and how those kind of increase the likelihood of those challenging behaviors. So one thing that we can do is to use logical consequences. These are consequences that are related to the behavior in some way. So here are some examples. A child continues to throw blocks at their sister after a redirection. So the parent says, remember, toys stay on the floor. I'm going to put these away until the next time you play. A brother and sister are fighting. So the parent has them go and play in separate rooms. Natural consequence. If we can't get along, we're going to separate. Your child gets out of their car seat. So you pull over, you stop the car, and you say, I can't drive until you're buckled into your seat. Logical consequences are an alternative to punishment. They're responses to the child's behavior that are logically related to the behavior. They give the child a chance to learn what happens when they don't follow the expected behavior. For example, if you break the toy, you don't get to play with it anymore. The child is able to directly see the consequence of their behavior. And here are a few tips for using logical consequences. So they must be practical and they must be enforced. Only select options that they are willing to enforce. So if you guys are headed to the grocery store and your kiddo won't put on their shoes, a logical consequence would not be, if you don't put on your shoes, I'm going to leave you here, because we can't really leave a 3-year-old at home, right? So we have to think of something a little bit more logical than that. Don't intervene before the consequence takes place. If you feel empathy for your child, offer a chance to try again. If the behavior continues after you have provided a chance to try again, then you can be consistent and follow through with that logical consequence. Choices need to be stated calmly, clearly, and respectfully. So we don't want to be threatening in that moment, like, I'm going to leave you here if you don't put on your shoes. We want it to be stated just very calm so that it doesn't seem like it's punitive or arbitrary. We also want to try, if we can, to plan the consequence ahead of time. Options for actions or on consequences, they need to be logically linked to the activity. Logical consequences help guide children in learning how they are expected to behave in the real world. Talk about the consequence with your child before the activity or routine when the behavior is likely to occur. Remember that logical consequences help teach your child about the behavior that is expected and why it is expected. So we're going to look at some scenarios. So the first one is Dustin refuses to wash his hands before snack. Dustin's mother restates the rule to Dustin. You must wash your hands to eat. Dustin continues to refuse. His mother responds, you can wash your hands and have a snack, or you can continue playing while your brothers have their snack. If you need help washing hands, I can help you. So it would have been really easy just to like threaten, right? If you don't wash your hands, you can't have snack. But she stated it in a really calm and positive manner so that he knows his options are to have a snack or not if he doesn't wash his hands. Kyra throws blocks in the kitchen. Her dad reminds her of the rule toys need to stay on the floor of the kitchen. When Kyra continues to throw the blocks, her dad provides her with a choice. Blocks stay on the floor, or we can put them away. So very logical. You do it the way it's supposed to be done, or it's not something that we get to do anymore. Something else to consider as you're explaining consequences to your child ahead of time is providing a rationale for the consequence. Letting Dustin know why he needs to wash his hands, or letting Kyra know why the blocks need to stay on his floor could really be helpful depending on age and their cognitive abilities. But some of our kiddos, they kind of like the logic behind it. So some things to think through are just Think ahead of time about tough times that are challenging for your kiddo and what a good logical consequence would be. So some examples might be what to do if they're dumping water out of the bathtub, if they're leaving their toys on the floor, if they paint on the table or the floor instead of on their paper, if they're not putting their pajamas on time for their favorite show, or if they're continuing to bang a toy even when you need them to be quiet. So just kind of think through some of those scenarios, or think through some of your own that might be helpful. But there is also a worksheet that you can do in your handbook for this activity. So just pick a few behaviors or situations that you would like to see decrease those challenging behaviors, and then think about some logical consequences for those. They're not always easy, so if you guys need any help, just reach out to your child's teacher. Another strategy that you can use is redirection. So it basically means interrupting a challenging behavior and redirecting them to another activity. So you can do this by physically moving your child if needed, or verbally distracting them. As you think about their challenging behavior, obviously each situation is going to be unique, but using redirection might just be a more natural fit than a logical consequence in some examples. You might choose redirection first, and then if redirection doesn't work, then go to logical consequence. So for example, a child is playing in the sink and splashing water all over the bathroom. The mother physically moves the child away from the sink and guides them to toys to play with. The mother sits down on the floor and begins to play in a way that is inviting with the child. This is an example of physical redirection. Another example is a child might be trying to gain the attention of an adult who is on the phone, right? That always happens, right? When you're on the phone is when they need you. Another adult could then say to the child, like, hey, Ezekiel, let's go upstairs and read some of your new library books. Or you could redirect them to a toy that they like. If a child is upset and having a temper tantrum because they were asked to turn off the television, you might redirect the child by saying, wow, it's so beautiful outside. Let's go in the backyard and enjoy the day. The child may become interested in going outside and will no longer be upset about turning the TV. The mother is then able to provide positive attention once they get outside. Thank you for being excited to go outside too, and thank you for finding your shoes. Redirection can also be used to prompt children to use new skills. For example, Marcus begins to scream and hit his father because he's frustrated when putting a toy together. The father says to the child, Marcus, can you say help please? Marcus says help please, and the father puts the toy together. The father will continue to provide positive attention and encouragement to Marcus when he asks for help instead of hitting and screaming. So we can definitely use redirection in those moments. Like, hey, I can see that you need help and you're frustrated. Here's how you can ask for it and then follow through. Like, I'm super excited to help you. Another strategy, and this is a tough one, is that we can just ignore the behavior. This is another useful response strategy. When a child's behavior is challenging, you can respond to it, or sometimes we have to choose to ignore it. We don't have to respond to every challenging behavior that the child uses. There are some challenging behaviors that honestly might just be more annoying than they are like dangerous or problematic. And so if you can just ignore, then that can be really beneficial. If a reaction is necessary, remember that less is usually best. Act calmly with a minimum amount of attention to reduce the risk of strengthening the behavior that you're trying to discourage. Remaining calm will also give you time to think about how you want to respond. The more out of control your child becomes, the more self-control you need to use, which I know that can be tough, but we just have to be the child's calm in that moment. A great example of this would be you told your child that dinner is in 10 minutes, so she needs to wait for dinner and having a snack, which results in a tantrum, right? We've all been there before. So we have a few options of how you can respond. Your child is frustrated, and you can respond by acknowledging that and redirecting her to a preferred activity. So you seem really frustrated right now. I know that you're hungry. Let's find that coloring book that you love, and you can do that until dinner time. Or because you're busy preparing dinner, you could also give yourself permission to ignore this behavior. You might think to yourself, I can help my child learn expectations or another skill to learn when they are upset or frustrated during a calmer time. But right now is just not a great time to do that. And then remember way back to session 2 when we talked about keeping it positive. Give specific positive attention to the behavior that you want to see, and that teaches your child what to do. So when you see a behavior that you would like to see again, make sure that you are encouraging that. The more positive attention that you can give a child following a behavior, the more likely is that they're going to engage in that behavior in the future. This is called reinforcement, and so you are reinforcing the fact that that behavior will happen again. The important point that we are providing encouragement and reinforcement is right after the behavior happens. So you want to tell them pretty immediately, especially at this young age. For some children, positive encouragement and comments might not be enough to motivate them to use that new skill or behavior. And maybe they just don't respond to thumbs up or pats on the back. So we might have to do something different like we do for ourselves, right? We reach a goal weight, we get a new pair of jeans, or we work in the yard for a long time. We might take a long bubble bath after. We work at our jobs, we get a paycheck. And so sometimes we might need to use things that motivate our kiddos to help encourage those positive behaviors. So think about some things that your kids like, and that doesn't just have to be things that you can buy. That doesn't just have to be snacks or treats, but it can also be one-on-one time, blowing bubbles, chalk, sensory supports. And think about those and how you could use those to encourage kids to continue those behaviors. Sometimes, and hopefully in rare circumstances, you are going to have to respond in a way to your child's challenging behavior to make sure that people are safe. So if your child runs into the road, we have to keep them safe as quickly as possible, right? And so in those moments, some things that we can do are to block unsafe behaviors while providing minimal attention. So use physical guidance without making eye contact and without spoken language. This ensures that your child is safe and also provides a minimal amount of attention, so you're not giving them attention for negative behavior. You can also help your child calm down and then redirect and re-engage. So once they're safe, we can help them calm down and maybe use one of our strategies like Tucker Turtle or problem solving, and then we can go back and reteach at a later moment. Hopefully you guys will try out some of these strategies with your kiddos' challenging behaviors, and we look forward to hearing about how that's working for you. Thank you.